Greetings, and again we'd like to say how much we appreciate all the views on LinkedIn, and we hope you're finding this series helpful. This week, we're taking a look at HIPAA business associates, who they are, and what you need to do to manage them. If you get a chance, visit our YouTube channel to subscribe to this series. There's much more to come. More about that later, but for now, let's get to our lesson. HIPAA compliance would be a whole lot easier if we didn't have patients, employees, or vendors. But the fact is, we do have patients and we want to protect their medical information. We train our staff so they do the right things. But what control and what privacy responsibilities do we have when it comes to vendors, contractors, and others who have legitimate access to our patients' data? These folks are called business associates. Here's the official definition of a business associate. A business associate is a person or company who uses or discloses protected health information, or PHI, while providing services to your practice. Practice employees are not considered business associates. Think about who has access to your patient's data while they perform some service for you. A business associate to your practice might be your contract provider, your attorney, accountant, transcriptionist, outside lab or imaging service, your tech provider, website provider, cloud storage provider, your email provider, a shredding service, or somebody else. Any of these people might be a business associate if they have access to patient data. They don't necessarily even have to read the data. For example, your outside tech support may house your computer server and may never actually look at the data. He or she is still in control of the data to some degree and should be treated as a business associate. Up front, you should never allow anyone outside your workforce to access your patient's data before executing a business associate agreement. Here's what the HHS website has to say. The regulation requires that a covered entity, in most cases a practice, obtain satisfactory assurances from its business associate that the business associate will appropriately safeguard the protected health information it receives or creates on behalf of the covered entity. The satisfactory assurances must be in writing, whether in the form of a contract or other agreement between the covered entity and the business associate. A business associate agreement has several requirements. We'll post a link to the HHS requirements for business associates on the YouTube description of this episode. Keep in mind, a business associate agreement is a legal document that you may rely on later, so make sure you get legal advice from your attorney. Some practices feel that it's just too much of a hassle to gain a business associate agreement from a contractor or a vendor. In this case, North Memorial Healthcare has agreed to settle charges that it potentially violated HIPAA by failing to implement a business associate agreement with a major contractor and failing to institute an organization-wide risk analysis to address risks and vulnerabilities to its patients' information. As I looked for case studies for this episode, I was pleased to see that a lot of practices did, in fact, have business associate agreements. In those cases, the business associate was held accountable and fined. But in this case, with no business associate agreement, the hospital was fined over $1.5 million and subjected to a 2-year corrective action plan. We'll post a link to the resolution agreement in the YouTube episode notes. Legislation enacted in 2013 requires business associates to perform all the compliance measures a covered entity or practice is required to do. The practice is required to hold business associates accountable, first by executing a business associate agreement with them, and also making sure that the business associate is doing what the agreement requires they do. Business associates have to weigh whether the effort is worth your business. Let's take your outside tech support, for example. You present them with an agreement that says they must do HIPAA training, perform a risk analysis, and take other measures to protect the data in their care. The reality is that some may shy away or may charge you more for the additional requirements. Ultimately, the decision is yours, but again, we strongly advise letting anyone touch your data without an agreement in place. It puts your patient's data at risk, and it puts your practice at risk. To wrap things up, business associates are people or companies from outside of your workforce that have access to your patient's data. Execute a business associate agreement with business associates before they have access to the data. Business associate agreements protect your practice. Make sure your business associates abide by them. If they can't, you may need to look for support elsewhere. Most HIPAA compliance tasks are fairly simple. However, this one is a little more extensive. Risk analysis is required for any covered entity that stores, transmits, or otherwise uses protected health information in electronic format. We'll start with an overview of risk analysis, and then in the following weeks, we'll fill in some additional details for you. Stay tuned. We'd love to hear from you. If you'd like us to cover specific topics or have questions, just let us know. We'd be happy to help. We want to keep this training free with no advertisements. You can help by subscribing to our YouTube channel today. Just click the YouTube link at the bottom right of the screen, then click the subscribe button. Thank you. Again, my name is Andy Lako of Lake House Consulting, and we'll see you next week.